What makes a good game? This is a question that many of us disagree on. For example, a lot of us love Borderlands' cel-shaded art style, while on the other hand it gives some people a headache to even look at. In that case, what makes a game bad? And how do we, as the audience, know when a game is doing the bare minimum? What makes a good game? When it comes to Black Myth Wukong, I fear that this question is just not being asked. The game is good, don't get me wrong. However, I feel a lot of praise or hate given to it is dictated by politics of one side or the other. On one side, the game shuns agendas to tell a very specific story. On the other side, it's a monster due to sexism and claims of xenophobia. But neither of these things have anything to do with the actual game. And my channel, not being a political channel, this will be the furthest into this particular topic we go. It's just important that we see where some of the most vocal opinions are coming from. So I ask again, what makes a good game? There are several metrics that normal people like myself and you in the audience mention when we're talking about games. Things like story and how it's told, combat, difficulty, level design, enemy design, the replayability of the game, and the graphics. Without wasting any time, let's get into the story of this game. So, Black Myth Wukong takes its inspiration from one of China's most famous stories from around the 15th century in Journey to the West, which sadly, for a lot of people not in China, the most they might know about this story would probably be from the many adaptations it got in other media, like the movie The Forbidden Kingdom with Jet Li and Jackie Chan, or games like Smite where you can do odysseys and read character descriptions, or, you know, the most well-known example in the West with Goku in the original Dragon Ball. Now you might be asking, why did I just bring up all of that stuff if I said I wasn't going to waste your time? Well, you see, the game takes place after what happens in the Journey to the West. So if you don't know anything about this particular Chinese tale, you'll immediately be missing out on a lot of characters' motivations and even why there is animosity between some of the characters that you run into in the game if you have not read the source material. You are literally thrown into the middle of a story as the destined one, not even the titular character of the title. A lot of people have been comparing the game to Souls-likes, and even though many mention combat with Souls-like games, and we will get into that later in the video, Souls-likes also have a very distinctive way of telling their stories, and that is through item descriptions, more so than through cutscenes. But this game tends to drip its story to you at certain points with cutscenes, and does not get very deep through things like item descriptions. However, you do have your journal to tell you about each new creature and place that you run into to help you along the way. Each zones introduce new characters for you to meet, and they also contribute to what you know in the game. So, is the story actually good though? Well, it comes from a very rich source material. However, due to the high level of entry, if you want to know what's actually going on as a precursor to the game, and for me, its method of delivering extra important information, I'm going to have to give the game a 7 out of 10 in the story department. Do you remember just a bit earlier when I mentioned combat being very Souls-like? And yes, I know the developers have said it's not a Souls-like, but let's face it, they're just wrong in the aspect that most people care about, and that is the combat. You have all the basic Souls functions, tight dodge timing with pattern-based combat, where your stamina bar is almost as important as your health bar when it comes to if you'll succeed or not. Its combat is Souls-like. However, unlike Souls games, when you fail, you don't have to collect your experience, which allows for a much less hectic time. Instead of running over to grab your experience points, you can just take off and train more with the respawning enemies that populate in every map that you traverse. This is another Souls-like quality that the game has, respawning enemies whenever you rest at your site of grace, bonfire, or in this case, shrines. So, the good things with the combat system? The controls are smooth and easy to learn. Almost anyone can probably master the basics of how to fight the many foes in the game in a matter of minutes. I actually want to test to see if my 5-year-old nephew could figure this out quickly. You get satisfying sound cues that let you know when you properly dodge, and you also have a clone of yourself appear where you were, just adding this visual flair to the game. You get more powers and points to upgrade the abilities that you already have every time you either meditate or level, making for a nice transition in power, allowing each level to feel like it truly impacts combat. With all the good being said, what could be bad about the combat? Well, yes, you get new abilities at a very fine pace. However, with the combat in Black Myth Wukong, it feels very samey. With its battle loop, you are a very specific combatant. You light combo with the staff in order to build up your orbs in the bottom right corner in order to use one of 3 power strikes. Personally, I prefer the power pole function for its high likelihood of stunning the enemy hit with it. In the spells get, mind you, this is a very simplistic way of putting it, are literally just a different variation of how can I not take damage for a couple of seconds. You either freeze them for a couple of seconds, Misty Step behind them, leaving a clone for the enemy to strike at, turn to stone for I take no damage and can counter ability, transform into another creature that has its own health bar, saving yours for slightly longer time if you can fight with it properly, or summon an army of you to take damage for you for a few seconds. The lack of true different fighting styles in the game is going to affect another section later in the video also. But like I said, many things feel samey. So how does this affect the overall ranking of the combat? In my video, this will probably be my hottest take in the whole video, but it's my video, so tell me how I'm wrong in the comments section, and if you agree or can see my point, go ahead and like and subscribe. But I'm giving the combat of Black Myth Wukong a 5 out of 10. It's combat, but it could use a little bit more variety in order for it to be exceptional combat. You know what combat is sometimes considered to go hand in hand with? Well, that would be the difficulty of the game. And while the game has some puzzles in it to open up shortcuts, it does nothing to really add to the difficulty of the game. The old adage, difficult but fair, works well with this one, and you can make mistakes and still win against the boss, but narrowing in on the tight combat can make it feel even easier. Also, if you make a mistake, you're allowed to keep all of your items and experience, allowing for an easier grind. No need to go much deeper on the difficulty, it's a solid 8 out of 10, the game keeps you learning and adapting to the new bosses, and don't beat you down too hard. Next up, and something that could be placed into what makes the game difficult a bit, is the design of the levels. Now, I came into this game blind. I had no idea if the game was open world or linear, and as such, when the first area you start in presents as definitely linear, I started playing it like it was a linear game. However, once you reach the bone snakes in the bamboo forest, the game looks like it will open up to a maybe more open world game. Unlike in other games that will show you items that are hard to get to but have a convoluted way of getting to those items, this game has areas that look like you can jump to but can't, and items in places that look like you can't reach but can. It makes for a very difficult time finding all the locations in a given area. There are games that have done this well. Dark Souls 3, Resident Evil 4, and even the Neo games have great hidden paths and hidden areas. And while this game's individual levels look great visually, we're not on graphics yet, so with all my gripes against the level design, I can't in good conscience give level design anything better than a 6 out of 10. Black Myth may have some design issues, but one place where that does not exist in this is their enemy design. Every enemy you run into, from the lowly wolf grunt in the intro area to massive dragons, feel unique and interesting. Some of them have conversations with one another. Every boss has an interesting set piece and a cutscene that you don't have to watch every time you enter their arena, which, let's face it, is an annoying thing that a lot of games have. A good old one and done experience. With several of the bosses, you get to know their motivations before combat even begins. The Gaius bring a richness to the game and make it feel populated in a way that few games have in the past and few will continue to do in the present. So far, the only character design I didn't care for has been the Headless Monk, because I was really not a fan of his music, but I still loved what he added to the game. Simply put, the game did very well in this aspect, and I have to give the game a 9 out of 10 on enemy design. Very few games can compete with how this game encapsulates the Chinese lore and locations it's meant to through its enemy designs. In fact, this made me go back and reevaluate the level design a bit. So let's go ahead and bump that one up to a 7 out of 10 while I'm thinking about it. For the last 2 areas we need to talk about, it will be quick. First off is the graphics, and well, come on, this game's graphics are vastly superior to many games I've played in the last several years. This is simply the first, best, and only place to put a 10 out of 10 in the scoring of this game. Now on to the replayability. If you like the game, of course, you will do multiple playthroughs. I mean, I rebooted Final Fantasy Tactics again just recently. However, if you're thorough like I am with games, most of the secrets are not hard to find in the game. You can grind out all the skills in the game over a matter of time, and as such, build diversity is not really much of a thing. It really comes down to if you want to try new transformations or summons, which nothing is really stopping you from just testing them all out as you play. So this game is simply a play it and put it down game for myself and most of the people who I know who will play it. So with that being said, I'll give it a right down the middle of a 5 out of 10. So what makes a good game? And does Black Myth Wukong fit into that box or not? So when we tally up the score and divide by the 7 categories, we get a very solid 7.2 out of 10 overall in the game score. And to me, a 7 is a good game. I felt I had to do this video because, like I said in the beginning of the video, I feel the game in itself is being overshadowed by which side of a political fight someone is on or not, and not whether or not the game had any merit to it on itself. And those also. With that being said, I'd like to thank my members. At the Elden Lord level, we have Noah, and that's it. After the Elden Lord level, we've got the Demigod level, and well, here we go. Sun Havoc Jr., Gray, Cars Scooby, Lamba Biblo, Mimi Calpio, Jack DeVol, Dark Kitty, Kermit, Mecha, Chocolate Milk, Dagger 66, Alabas, sorry but I can't pronounce that, Amanda Hammond, Grim GG, Arrow, The Johnny Boy, Biggest and the Truth, Ghost Hunter TV, Darkness, Donald Rich, Maddykins, Henry, Grim Keith, The Potato Nader, B Walker 8732, Sideswipe, Kiddom 804, Joseph Money, Murphy Great, King Baby Seal III, The Unkindled Tarnished, and Philip Guerrero. If you'd like to support the channel, go ahead and become a member also, and we'll see you again next time.